The third episode in our evolving and continued series here of trade deadline, second half, silly season stash candidates. It is now. I'll be joined today by the great Roto Mike Barner. That's his Twitter handle. His actual real life human being handle is just Mike Barner. He'll be coming up here in about 2 minutes on the program. I'm Dan Vespers. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Hit that like button. Subscribe while you're settling in. That's the easiest time to do it. You haven't fully settled yet. You can still move the mouse around or your thumb or wherever you're taking in the content. Find me on Twitter at Dan Vespers, DanBesbris. Old Man Squad is the handle over on Blue Sky. And once again, a huge, massive, ultra-sized thank you to our buddies at Bet Online. Again, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing here without them as a partner. So whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion. They are the world's most trusted betting platform and the number one source for online betting in 2025. Bet Online will take you from touchdowns to three-pointers, hat tricks, and back again, covering you on every game, every play, and every win, while you, hopefully, cover on that play. You can bet on football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, and as the year loops around, you'll get all sorts of other stuff going as well. They've got it. The number one sports betting source for 2025. Bet Online. The game starts here. Again, as a little bit of a precursor, I don't know who our guests are going to talk about when they come on the show. They've come up with a few names to discuss. They might be names to discuss for the deadline. It might be for the silly season. It might be some of each. It might be active stashes. It might be inactive stashes. The beauty part of this is we're just making lists. We're going through names. We're breaking guys down. We're breaking down the upside, the downside. What is it like? Is it worth it? Basically, is the question we're going to ask on all of these guys to use up a roster slot. And the answer oftentimes is no. But sometimes it's yes. And we want to find some yeses. So without further ado, Mike Barner. And away we go, my good buddy Mike Barner. Before we dive into the stashes, what's up, dude? How you doing? How are your Bulls?
I'm doing good, thanks. The Bulls stink, just the way that they're supposed to. They don't realize they stink. But when you don't make moves and you're perpetually at the – I mean, last year they got that 9th seed. They got the home playoff game, so they got the ticket money for that. They were very excited. That's a win. You don't have to actually get the playoffs as long as you get that home ticket, that gate.
I told you.
Oh, they love that. Reinsdorf has got banner up. He put a banner up, said 9th seed.
Barter, I told you not to make me laugh. I'm still coughing from this flu. You're not allowed to
be about the Bulls. This is what happens.
I know. You're not allowed to be.
That's why they might sell this year, because they have no shot at the 9th seed in that home ticket gate. So Reinsdorf's like, I don't know. Yeah, we're not going to get that extra game. Maybe we should trade guys away.
Got to go on the road for the play-in lower seed game. Oh, not my God. They've been so bad lately. Surely that will be some kind of indicator. Like, this is despite Zach LaVine playing his butt off. They've been bad. I mean, I don't know. Well, we're going to get into stashes.
Bad team guy. That's what he is. He's good stats, bad team. He does it all the time. His teams are not successful.
Do you think he could end up somewhere else on a place where like his ability would be utilized better? Or what do you think actually happens with the Bulls? I'm going to ask you that before we get into the stashes.
Sure. I don't think LaVine gets traded simply because I think he's too hard to move during the season. I think he has reestablished his trade value, which is great. He's now not someone that you probably have to attach a first-round pick to just to get rid of his contract. Are they going to get multiple first-round picks for him? No, never, just because that contract is so bad, and he also has a lot of bad injury history. I mean, that's the thing right now. Not only is he playing well, but he hasn't missed many games. Yeah. This has been like best case scenario for LaVine. I would love if they could trade him. You know, I saw some rumors, maybe the Bucks or something like that. I would love it. I would take anything simply because give the minutes to somebody else. He's not part of their long-term team. They've showed they can't win with him. So change it up.
Yeah. Who do you think does get moved?
Vucevic. And we're going to talk about that.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Let's dive into the stashes then. And by the way, so I don't know which direction you want to go first on this one. I'll leave it up to you. I just love the idea that like everybody's bringing a different type of thought process to this? Is it a trade deadline stash? Is it a silly season stash? Is it like, how can we utilize these roster spots leading up to it? Do we need to get production out of the guy for the 10 days between now and the deadline? Are we able to stash guys that are total goose eggs? It's always worth discussing. It's a fun time of year. This is the time of year that I really wish I could get Jonas Nader to come back out of retirement. He was always sort of like the stash monster over the decades. I'll get you someday, Jonas. Anyway, Mike, Roto Mike Barner is where you can find him on social media. I mentioned that during the intro to the show. Roto Mike Barner on social media. Where do you want to go first?
So I'm going to talk about guys that are all benefit from either a trade, silly season, or both.
Ooh,
and the two guys that I'm going to talk about first could benefit from both, and that's why I like them so much.
all right.
So the first guy is going to be Donovan Clingan. He's available in 73% of Yahoo leagues. The Trailblazers are going to be sellers again. They're probably not going to be able to trade Ayton, but they would love to trade Robert Williams. Now, they have shown they are going to rest veterans. Here's a stat for you, Dan. Jeremy Grant, the last 2 seasons, has played a total of 11 games in the month of March. He has played no games in April. Jeremy Grant is allergic to the month of April. They don't play him because they stink. So I think Ayton is probably not going to play much down the stretch if he's still on the team. So that should be more minutes for Clingan. He has played at least 20 minutes in a game 9 times this season. In those games, he averaged 6.7 points, which isn't exactly great, but 10.6 rebounds and 2.7 blocks. So rebounds and blocks, I think he's going to regularly play 25 minutes a game down the stretch. So Clingan would be the first guy that I'd be stashing right. Of the center stashes, he's my favorite.
Yeah, and it feels like the really nice thing about Clingan is that Portland has already gone into the DeAndre Ayton where are you business.
Yep.
I don't know what, honest to God, I don't even remember what the latest injury tag is on him. I think it's a sore knee right now, but it could be a sore anything with DeAndre because he ain't playing down the stretch.
Yeah.
And like the Jeremy Grant stuff is hilarious because he was doing it in Detroit also. I think we're at about 4 or 5 seasons running of this same Jeremy Grant act. But Clingan's doing stuff right now. You don't even have to take zeros leading up to the deadline.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in a daily lineup league, he's valuable right now because on the games when they're resting Ayton or Williams or both, you can start him. It's a little bit trickier in weekly lineups because you don't know when Ayton's going to play and when Williams is going to play. But I think Williams is going to get traded at a bare minimum. I think he's going to get traded, and then that should free things up for Clingan. And then once Ayton sits out the last month plus of the season, Clingan's going to go off.
Do you think, just from an overall projections standpoint, what is the low threshold that Clingan needs to get to for us to feel good about production? Is it like 22 minutes? Is it higher, lower?
I mean, in the 9 games he played at least 20 minutes, he averaged almost 11 rebounds and 2.7 blocks. So if he's playing 20 minutes a game, and I think he's going to play around 25 down the stretch. So those numbers could be even better.
He is a very big human being. I wonder if people realize like how obscenely large this dude is. He's listed at 7'2", 280. That's on Yahoo. And I get it that he's not like the youngest player coming out of the draft. I think he's going to be 21 next month, which is relatively old for guys coming into the NBA right now. But that can be a good thing for a big man in particular. Like, he's not about to get pushed around. He's already man size, as opposed to thinking about like someone like an Alexei Pokushevsky who came in and weighed about $125 at 7 feet tall. Like, okay, yeah, Clingan's going to foul some people, but something that Alex Rickling brought up on our last episode that I like also just to throw into the mix is down the stretch, not only do you get these guys playing a bigger role, but you get them playing against a lot of teams that aren't paying attention at all. Like the last month and a half when Ayton is sitting out, he's not the only guy that's sitting out, and you get good teams that rest their stars against tanking teams because they know a team like the Blazers, they're going to actively try to lose in fourth quarters of games in March and April. Like, you can just let these guys run wild. So it's almost like a double whammy type of thing of silly season and trade deadline, just like you said. I've got to think Robert Williams gets moved. There are so many teams that could use his services, and then Ayton not playing. Like, that's the two-pronged approach that you're talking about here, right?
Exactly. And that's the second guy on the list too, Isaiah Collier of the Jazz. He's available.
Let's transition.
Yeah, Isaiah Collier is available in 83% of Yahoo leagues, and he's going to be in the same position. This is wild. It's January, okay? It's January. And the Jazz are resting 23-year-old Walker Kessler and
Yeah,
26-year-old Colin Sexton in second game of back-to-back sets. A 23-year-old needs rest
he's so tired.
halfway through. Oh, gosh. 23 years old. It's ridiculous. So they're already tanking, okay? So what we like here, Isaiah Collier, I think they're going to try and trade Colin Sexton and or Jordan Clarkson. At a minimum, I think Clarkson's gone because he's a reliable bench scorer. His contract's not crazy. There's going to be a lot of contending teams that want him. So Collier has made 10 starts this season. In those starts, he's averaged 9.4 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 7.9 assists. Now, he is not efficient. His percentages stink. So he's more valuable in points leagues than roto leagues. But again, I think he could be starting on a regular basis. This team could be Keontae George and Isaiah Collier starting for the last month of the season. Even if Sexton's on the team, they might just sit him. So I think Collier, especially if you need assists are not generally easy to come by on the waiver wire. So I think Collier would be another great addition for me.
Yeah, Collier's been an interesting one too, and I'll play a little devil's advocate on him. I don't really have the devil's advocate in me on Donovan Clingan because that one I think most of us agree on. Like at some point he's just going to get turned loose, and there's almost no downside to it. You mentioned the percentages stink on Collier.
Awful.
So do the turnovers.
Yep.
He strikes me more as the like what kind of team are you building type of dude. Like if you're punting field goal percent, great. If you're punting turnovers, great. If you're in like straight 9-cat roto, he might be doing more harm than good. I guess the question becomes like, how much of the counting stuff do we need to overwhelm the bad stuff? And the answer is a little bit more than it's been lately. Is that, and I can't think of the right way. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but like,
well, I think lately, the last couple of games, they brought guys back. John Collins came back, Lauri Markkanen came back, Colin Sexton's playing. So yeah, once all those guys are healthy and playing together, he's going to play 20 minutes as opposed to 30 or 33. When those guys roll out, Lauri Markkanen has been sidelined so many times with a back injury. You know how many back injuries he's going to have down the stretch? His back is going to be essentially broken. That is a perfect excuse injury because backs are tricky and they can flare up at any time. As we know here on the old man squad, all old men, our backs can go at any point. Or we can just be tying a shoe. So that's something they can use for him throughout the duration of the regular season. So I think Collier right now, he's not as valuable as someone say like Clingan. But a week from now, if Jordan Clarkson's gone, we could be looking at a minimum of 25 minutes a game for Collier moving forward. And then the last month of the season when Colin Sexton maybe isn't playing, and it's him and Keontae George, he could be playing 30 minutes a night.
You know, Mike, we're talking to Roto Mike Barner here on this show. You said a lot of really good fantasy stuff, but the only thing that my brain stuck on was this guy still ties his shoes. Come on, you're way too old for that. You got to be wearing slide-ons at this point. Slip-ons have got to be the only way.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm all laces here. I don't know. I'm old. I don't have any slip-ons or anything like that.
My shoes have laces. I just don't tie them anymore.
Well, you got to tie them just the right tightness so they don't fall off when you're walking, but then you don't have to actually tie them every time you put them on. Just like leave it tied and slide your foot in. Yeah, you
well
can do that.
played. That's the ticket right there.
That's the sweet spot.
Yeah, the sweet spots. You can get them on and off without undoing it, but like you can't be bending over to tie them every day. That's brutal, especially because I slept on the couch last night because one of the sick kids got my spot in the bed. Like my back is hanging on by a thread today. That is not a firm couch to sleep on.
Well, you got to have a bench next to wherever your shoes are so you can sit on the bench.
Yeah.
To tie your shoes. You can't just be bending over. There's got to be someplace to sit. That's key.
You know what this like? I know that this is a stand-up comedy routine that I'm sure has been done 1,000 times, but like when you're young and you watch your own dad tie his shoes by like bringing a foot up much closer to his body as opposed to going down to the foot, and your thought is like, what's wrong with this dude? And then you're there now, and everything just hits so differently. I'm thinking back to like how my dad used to bring the shoe way up high. I was like, why is he tying it like that? And then you start to get it. Kids need to understand these things because nobody explained it to me. Like they just.
My realization was, so we had a fireplace and my dad would sit next to the fireplace and no matter what time it was, he would instantly fall asleep. and we would laugh at my dad. And now I have 2 gas fireplaces in my house, and if I sit next to them and it's even a slimmer of darkness outside, I immediately fall asleep. And I remember picking on my dad all the time. How is he asleep at 7:30? The Yankee game just started and he's already asleep. And I'd be like, now I sit there, and especially in the winter here, it's the circle of life. They talk about it. Comes and gets you quickly.
Yeah, man, what a rough go. Hey, what are you working on these days? Let's do a little promo before we get to your third guy.
Yeah, so you can catch all my fantasy stuff on RotoWire. I'm also one of the hosts of the Wednesday episode of the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast with Carrie and Sprecher. So we're on every Wednesday for that. My betting stuff can be found on Sportsline. Football, we are finally on to the Super Bowl. But normally during the football season, I do stuff on 4for4 football and real-time fantasy sports. So I'll be gearing up for baseball soon, but basketball is always near and dear to my heart.
How do you do all those different sports, man? You're a crazy person. Also, what are your thoughts on the Super Bowl matchup? Was this sort of predictable?
Yeah. Well, I did predict it in my article
There you
from
go.
last week. But yeah, I mean, you never bet against the Chiefs at home, so I don't care how everybody said the Bills looked better. This was their years. You never bet against Patrick Mahomes at home, and the Eagles they have only lost 1 game at home, including the regular season. So I wasn't surprised there, and I'll never bet against Mahomes. So it's the Chiefs for me in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really follow the NFL all that much. I watched Rams playoff games because I'm an Angelino, and everybody was like, they're on a beastly run. You got to watch. I'm like, all right, fair enough. And then I watched that crazy snow game and thought,
oh yeah,
this is a weird sport. And then I went back to basketball where there's a roof over the game. All right, so you saved who I think actually might be your most fun name to last here, because he's someone that I think you and I might have even talked about during the preseason on the hopes that maybe something would shake loose a little bit sooner. I know I talked to Smitty about him as well. And he's now, again, it's sort of circle of life thing. We've come full circle back at the deadline. Everybody knows you did tell me this name beforehand, so I have a look behind the curtain. But who is your third name, and how do we get there?
Jaylen Smith of the Chicago Bulls is available in 96% of Yahoo leagues. Earlier in the season, I did not think they were going to trade Vucevic. I thought they would do everything they could to try and trade LaVine, keep Vucevic, and try and make the play-in tournament. With all these losses now, and with how well Vucevic has played, I think his value is at its peak. There are a lot of teams that want him. His contract is not that bad. So I think that he gets traded. So who are we looking at behind him is Jaylen Smith. He's only averaging 15 minutes a game this season because Vucevic plays, and he plays a lot. Still, Smith's averaging 8.2 points, 5.4 rebounds, 0.7 blocks, and 1.1 three-pointers. So that's pretty good considering he's barely playing. He has made 1 start in the game that Vucevic missed. Now, it came against the Hornets, not exactly the best team in the league. But Smith had 11 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks, and a three-pointer over 29 minutes. That's really good. If they get a center back in the trade, I don't know who it would be, because these teams that they're talking about trading Vucevic to, like the Warriors, they don't really have any good centers. And if the Bulls make that trade, they're probably only doing it to get a pick back and then take some bad contracts, maybe an expiring, because Vucevic has more time left on his deal, and they're probably trying to clear their cap a little bit here. So I don't think they get a center back that's going to steal minutes from Jaylen Smith. So we could be looking, I mean, he's not going to play 35 minutes a game, no matter who's on the roster. They'll just play small or something like that. But if he can play around 30 minutes a night, there's no reason to think he can't average 12 points, 8 or 9 rebounds, and a couple of blocks. And he can shoot threes too. He's a good 3-point shooter. So you could get a 3.5 from him. So and he's available in 96% of leagues. So he's out there just about everywhere. So if you missed out on Clingan, he's already been stashed. Smith would be a guy I would also consider.
Yeah, the nice thing too about Jaylen Smith is that from an efficiency standpoint, he's pretty good. I mean, career 51%er from the field, career 75 at the free throw line. That's not bad for a center. My only fear is, and I know Rick Carlisle's not his coach anymore, but we all have this like twinge when we hear his name about that year in Indiana when he was supposed to be the starting power forward, and he got like 4 starts and then he got yanked around for 65 games after that. Is there a universe where that happens, or are the Bulls so thin in the front court that there's really no other choice?
Yeah, they're so thin. They don't have anybody else that they could put in there ahead of him. They would have to get somebody back in a trade. I guess the only downside would be if they traded Vucevic somewhere and then they made another trade, like say they traded Lonzo Ball or Zach LaVine, and they got a center back in that deal, then maybe that could be the only downside. But they don't have anybody. They have a plethora of guards, which is why Josh Giddey can't play 30 minutes on a consistent basis, which is mind-boggling to me. But they don't have anybody at center. So unless they get one back in another trade, Jaylen Smith would play a lot if Vucevic is dealt.
Yeah, and the reason, by the way, that we all got so excited about Jaylen Smith was after he ended up in Indiana 3-4 years ago. I think I'm trying to put that on the screen so folks can see it. He played 25 minutes a game down the stretch for those Pacers and averaged 13 and 8. That was in 24 minutes and 40 seconds a ball game with a block, 1.4 3-pointers on 53-76 splits. Like, that's not even starters minutes. Give him another 3 or 4 on top of that, and you're talking about over 14 points, maybe even as many as 15, depending on, how many other usage guys get out of the way. I'm really intrigued by this one, and I really hope that Vooch gets moved for so many reasons. I know you do as well. It's like the Chicago side, the Bulls side is one, but the Jaylen Smith side is the other. Let me ask you the hard question about Jaylen Smith, or really any of these guys other than, I guess, Clingan. How do you handle the fact that Jaylen Smith right now, like nightly in his 15 minutes, is doing next to nothing? You just sort of wear it for 10 days?
Yeah, wear it for 10 days.
Okay.
This is if you have, we're talking about stashes. So hopefully you have one roster spot that you're playing around with. Maybe you're in first or second or third place and you're already well on prime for a playoff spot in your league. You can afford to take a little bit of a hit for the next 10 days until we see what happens at the trade deadline. And then if Vucevic doesn't get traded, then you just drop Smith because the Bulls, if they don't trade people, they're not going to be one of these tanking teams that rests all of their veterans. They're going to play and they're going to try to make the play-in tournament. So Vucevic would play a ton and Smith wouldn't be worth rostering.
Oh, Bulls.
Yeah.
You Bulls so hard, Bulls.
Yeah.
Lord, good gravy. Mr. Barner, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for bringing the names, and thank you for being the first to mention Jaylen Smith in this series of episodes. I have high hopes for him. I mean, he's going to be one of those ones where, like, if I'm hosting the trade deadline live show on that Thursday morning and a Vooch trade goes down, I'm legitimately just leaving the show for 30 seconds so that I can go get Jaylen Smith everywhere, and then I'll break it down for people. Because that one, like, if he gets starters minutes, that's a difference maker kind of fantasy stat set. That's an exciting one. Points, boards, threes, blocks on good percentages. Like, I know that it's not unicorny. It's not, he's not going to go JJJ level or Porzingis or whatever, but like, he's the poor man's version of that kind of fantasy game, to have good percentages and blocks and threes and scoring and rebounding. Those guys are hard to find.
And the Bulls are always going to play at a fast pace. So let's say, for instance, they deal Zach LaVine. Well, guess what? That just means Josh Giddey's going to play more. And they're just going to keep pushing. And Ayo Dosunmu, he's head down. He's going towards the rim all the time. So they're going to keep playing at a fast pace. And that's not a problem for Jaylen Smith. He can get up and down the floor. He can stretch the floor like Vucevic is doing now. So he's an ideal fit if Vucevic does get traded. But, Dan, you might not be able to pick him up in all these leagues because we're talking about him now. So he might be gone.
Yeah,
so you might have maybe 1 or 2 leagues, Dan. Just pick him up today.
Yeah, especially if you're in a games cap format. You could sit him on your bench. It doesn't hurt you at all in that respect. What do you think about Ayo leading up to the deadline? Could we clear out a path for him?
Please. I love Ayo. I love Ayo. He's their best perimeter defender other than Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball's the best, but he can't play 30 minutes a night. Ayo Dosunmu can play 35 minutes, and he's their best perimeter defender. He's become a decent three-point shooter. He's not elite, but he's passable, and he's making enough of them to be good in fantasy. He can average 4 rebounds and 5 assists a night. He can score 13, 14 points. He can give you enough across the board. He's shooting close to 50% from the field. He's definitely someone the reason why I mentioned Jaylen Smith and not him is just listening to Casey Johnson's my favorite Bulls beat writer, and he's been talking recently about he thinks LaVine stays on the team through the trade deadline and Vucevic gets moved. So earlier in the season, if we were talking about this, I would have said Ayo 100% would be my stash and Jaylen Smith probably not because I don't think Vucevic gets traded. But listening to him now, what he's been saying, I think I would flip it. And I hope that they trade Zach LaVine. I hope that they also trade Lonzo Ball. He's a good story. He would be a perfect. He's kind of like a better version of Alex Caruso, if you ask me, because Caruso, he can play 30 minutes a game in the playoffs, but he can't in the regular season because he just breaks down. So Lonzo's playing 25, 26 minutes a game. So he's kind of like that, but he's a much better shooter. And he's also a good defender, a very good defender. So I think he'd be very valuable on a contending team that can afford to play him 25 minutes off the bench.
Yeah. There's a lot going on, man. The Bulls could be an absolute gold mine at the trade deadline, or it could be the same.
Yep.
Come on, please don't.
Ninth seed or bust if they don't.
Unbelievable, man.
Get that home game.
I'm so sorry. So sorry. Mike, you're the best, dude. At Roto Mike Barner. Find him on social media. It's super easy to find. It's spelled the way you think it would be spelled. 3 amazing stashes. Thank you. And let's have some fun leading up to the deadline.
Thanks for having me on, Dan.
I cough as I'm coming. Come on, Bespris, get it together. Can't cough. Mike wasn't even making me laugh at that point. Mike Barner is great. I love having that dude on the show. We got to do that even more often. You know what I'm really proud of? I think that's the 82nd guest episode that we've done on this show since launching, which again is still only like 7 or 8 months ago. I'm on a much better pace than I used to be. I'm very happy about that. You can find Mike again on social media at Roto Mike Barner, ROTO Mike. Last name is Barner. He's amazing. And he's a freaking hell of a podcaster too. He's so easy to have on shows, which like for a host such as myself, that's the unicorn right there. Roto Mike Barner. That's the damn unicorn. Hey, before we go, come hang out with us over at UnderdogFantasy.com. Use promo code OLDMAN or just click the link in the show description when you sign up, and it will unlock, and you can't see it on my screen because I already used mine, but a free play, which today, on Monday, was Kevin Durant over 1 point. If you're watching the show after that game has already started, then obviously you'll move on to the next one. But every day, they roll in a new free play until it expires, and then they kick up the next one. So make sure you use that promo code OLDMAN or click the link in the show description when you sign up. You also can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash on a 50% deposit match. You can see that on your screen right now if you're watching with us on YouTube. So let's go through a couple of names right now and look at the Monday card. I'm going to click over to the NBA tab. Again, we're at UnderdogFantasy.com. Our buddy Brenton Eckersley told us, I want to collapse all of them so I can find the game I'm looking for quickly. Our buddy Brenton said that Malik Monk is the way to go. Let's find Monk. So we'll go higher than 19.5. Ooh, do I want to go points or do I want to go point, board, and assists? Because assists have been pretty darn good lately. We're just going to go scoring on this one. We'll go higher on Malik Monk. And then Lakers and Hornets. I don't think the Lakers are going to take this game very seriously. I do think they're going to put their guys on LaMelo Ball, and they're going to make someone like a Miles Bridges beat them, or Mark Williams, although he's going to be dealing with Anthony Davis. So I'll go Miles Bridges. Or do I go Mark Williams under? The problem is I don't know what the effort level is going to be like. Max Christie, Josh Okogie, Nick Smith Jr. Someone like Josh Okogie feels like just the kind of guy that's going to go big against the Lakers. All right, we're going to go Malik Monk higher, and we're going to go Josh Okogie higher. And this is going to pay 3x, which is cool because we're going with sort of these low-profile names. So I'm just going to do a $4 play, and we're going to lock it in. Malik Monk higher, that's the Brenton play. Josh Okogie higher, that's the Dan Bespris Insano play. Because I think the Lakers don't take this game seriously. So let's see how that goes. You guys can play along with me if you want. I mean, the Okogie one is very much a shot in the dark, and I pulled it out of my you-know-what right in the middle of the show. But Monk is the one that Brenton likes a lot. And if you sign up again, you get that free play. Combine Monk with whatever your free play, and there you go. You're freaking golden at that point. Anyway, that's our buddies at UnderdogFantasy.com. We're very happy to have a partnership with them now as well, on top of our partnership with Bet Online. Hey, you know the rule. If you made it to the end of the show, you got to hit that subscribe button. Like the show, like our trade deadline live show, which we're just racking up the guests right now. We got 6 or 7 guests lined up for that thing, and more are coming. I am Dan Bespris on Twitter, Dan is easy. Besbris is Besbris. YouTubers, you can see it on your screen. Old Man Squad on Blue Sky. Do all the stuff on the way out. Subscribing, obviously, the big one. Back with you soon. We'll have a nice recap show coming up from the big Monday card. That'll be the next episode you guys hear when it drops. You'll find out. For now, see you later. Big goal, huh?